Chapter 3: The Archives. After the interview, Aris retreated to the station's research facility to process what she had learned. She pulled up Martinez's genetic profile again, comparing it to baseline human sequences and running evolutionary modeling software that she had never expected to use on living subjects. The results were unambiguous and terrifying. The genetic changes weren't random mutations, they were following a clear developmental pathway. The software tracked the trajectory backward through evolutionary history, human to primate, primate to early mammal, and then to fish or early vertebrates. She stared at the screen, hardly believing what she was seeing. If the models were correct, Martinez and the other miners weren't just developing aquatic adaptations. They were maturing and regressing along the entire vertebrate evolutionary tree. And if the progression continued at its current rate, they would eventually reach the root of chordate evolution itself. Aris reached for her communicator to place an emergency call to Earth, then stopped. She needed more data first. More proof. Because what she was about to propose would shake the foundations of everything they believed about Khronos, about human evolution, about the future of their species. She pulled up the personnel files for every mining operation in the outer system, cross-referencing ages, Khronos immunization dates, and incident reports of unusual physiological adaptations. The pattern that emerged made her hands shake as she compiled her report. Humanity's greatest triumph was revealing itself to be the first movement in a transformation that would make us something entirely new. Something that might not be human at all. Outside the station's viewports, the asteroid belt stretched into darkness, punctuated by the lights of mining operations where the next stage of human evolution was quietly, inexorably unfolding. The Genoa Corporation archives occupied 17 floors beneath the Sea of Tranquility, on Earth's moon, a testament to humanity's most celebrated pharmaceutical triumph. Dr. Aris Thorne descended through layers of bureaucracy and security clearances, her emergency research credentials from the series incident opening doors that had been sealed for nearly a century. Most of this material has been digitized, explained Dr. Sarah Voss, the archives director, as they walked through climate-controlled corridors lined with sealed storage units. But you specifically requested the original trial documentation. May I ask why? Aris had spent the 3-day journey from Ceres formulating her answer. I'm investigating some unusual physiological responses in the super-elderly population. I need to cross-reference with the original canine trials to understand if there were any overlooked markers that might predict these changes. It was true, as far as it went. She had no intention of mentioning her growing suspicion that Khronos had fundamentally altered human evolutionary trajectory until she had more proof. The dog trials. Voss nodded as she palmed a biometric scanner. Heavy doors hissed open, revealing a vast chamber filled with physical documents in hermetically sealed containers. Dr. Rashid's work. Brilliant research, though he became somewhat eccentric in his later years. Insisted on maintaining paper records alongside digital storage. Said information could be too easily altered in digital format. The name sent a chill through Aris. Dr. Kamal Rashid, the lead geneticist on the original Khronos Project, had disappeared from public life shortly after the vaccine's approval. Officially, he had retired to pursue private research. Unofficially, there had been whispers about disagreements with the Genoa board, concerns about long-term effects that couldn't be properly studied in the abbreviated approval timeline. Is Dr. Rashid still alive? Aris asked. As far as I know. He'd be around 190 by now. Living somewhere in the Swiss Alps, I believe. Reclusive. Stopped answering communications from the company decades ago. They reached a section of the archive marked with biohazard warnings and additional security seals. The canine trials, Voss announced. Fair warning, some of the later documentation gets quite detailed. Dr. Rashid was thorough to the point of obsession. Alone in the sterile reading room, Aris opened the first container and found herself face to face with the origins of humanity's salvation. The early documentation was exactly what she expected: careful protocols, baseline measurements, initial positive results. Cancer rates in the test dogs dropped to 0 within weeks of treatment. Tumors dissolved. Terminal cases became healthy. But as she progressed through the chronological record, she began to notice annotations in Rashid's increasingly erratic handwriting. Marginal notes that had been absent from the official reports. Day 47, Subject B12 showing unusual pack behavior. Previously solitary, now seeks constant physical contact with other subjects. Day 63, multiple subjects displaying what can only be described as feral regression. Increased aggression during feeding, territorial marking behavior not observed in baseline. Day 78, remarkable, subjects appear to be developing rudimentary communication patterns. Vocalizations becoming more complex, almost linguistic? Aris felt her pulse quicken. These observations had been completely omitted from the published research. She pulled up the digital versions on her tablet to confirm. The official record described minor behavioral changes dismissed as stress responses to laboratory conditions. She dug deeper into the physical files, finding video recordings that didn't exist in the digital archive. The footage was disturbing. Dogs that had been trained as individual subjects were behaving like a pack. They moved in perfect coordination, shared food without competition, and seemed to respond to threats against any member of the group as if they were all being attacked. But most unsettling was their apparent intelligence. The dogs were solving complex puzzles they had never been taught to solve, displaying problem-solving abilities that far exceeded their pre-treatment baselines. When researchers separated individuals from the group, their performance dropped dramatically. They only achieved their enhanced cognitive abilities when working together. Day 112, beginning to suspect the Neoteny hypothesis was incorrect. Khronos doesn't prevent atavistic regression, it enables controlled evolutionary reversion. The question becomes, reversion to what? Aris had to read that note 3 times before its implications sank in. Rashid had suspected, even during the trials, that they weren't simply curing cancer. They were triggering something deeper. She found the genetic analysis data buried in a separate container, pages of handwritten calculations that showed Rashid's growing alarm. He had tracked specific gene expressions in the treated dogs, noting the activation of sequences that should have remained dormant. These are not dog genes, he had written in increasingly shaky script. These are ancestral canid genes. Lupin markers that predate domestication by millennia. But the activation pattern suggests something even more fundamental, a return to an earlier branching point in mammalian evolution. The final entries in the canine trial records were the most disturbing. Rashid described the dogs developing what he called collective consciousness episodes, periods where they appeared to share sensory input and memories. When one dog learned a new task, the others could immediately perform it without training. Day 156, the pack has become something new. Individual identity appears to be subsuming into group identity. They no longer respond to individual names consistently. Health remains perfect, cancer remains absent, but the subjects are no longer recognizable as the animals we began with. Day 170, Board Review today. Recommendation for human trials approved despite my objections. I have tried to explain that we do not understand the full implications of what we have created. They see only the cancer cure. They cannot see the transformation. Day 171, I am documenting everything in physical format. Digital records are too easily modified. Someone must know what really happened here. The final document was a sealed letter addressed to future researchers who discover the truth. Aris opened it with trembling hands. If you are reading this, then the long-term effects have begun to manifest in the human population. I pray I am wrong, but my calculation suggests that the changes will not become apparent until subjects reach advanced ages, perhaps 130 years or more. By then, the transformation will be irreversible and universal. Khronos works by disabling what I call the neoteny locks, genetic switches that keep humans in an extended juvenile state. We are not, as we believe, evolved apes. We are metamorphically arrested sea creatures. The fossil record shows this clearly if you know how to read it. Our notochords, our pharyngeal gill slits during embryonic development, our neural tube formation, we are early chordates who never completed their life cycle. The treatment does cure cancer, because cancer is a byproduct of these faulty neoteny genes as they break down with age. But removing the locks allows the natural chordate development cycle to resume. In dogs, this meant regression to their lupin ancestry. In humans, I have run the evolutionary models. If I am correct, treated humans will eventually revert to our original chordate form, colonial tunicates. This would happen gradually, over centuries, but the transformation would be total. Individual consciousness would merge into collective awareness. Physical form would become sessile and filter-feeding. The species would effectively cease to exist as we know it. The board refused to consider these possibilities. Human trials began 3 days ago. May God forgive us all. Aris sat in the sterile silence of the reading room, staring at words written over a century ago by a man who had foreseen humanity's future with terrifying accuracy. Her hands shook as she photographed every page, every note, every calculation. She thought of Elena Martinez floating peacefully in her perfluorocarbon tank, speaking of dreams shared with beings in distant oceans. Of her great-great-grandmother's cryptic warnings about understanding what they had become. Of the 16 billion souls currently alive on Earth, all carrying the seeds of an evolutionary transformation beyond their comprehension. Her communicator buzzed with an incoming message. Priority Alpha encryption from an unlisted sender. Dr. Thorne. Your research activities have been noted. Meet me at coordinates attached. Come alone. We have much to discuss about the future of our species. Kr. The coordinates were in the Swiss Alps. The initials needed no explanation. Dr. Kamal Rashid, the man who had seen this coming over a century ago, was ready to tell her the rest of the truth.